What's up, guys? So we are fresh off of the flight from Las Vegas to Tampa, and now that we made it home safely, the post-show food has digested, and I can get a gauge and had some time to actually digest the feelings that have just been taking place. I wanted to give you guys a brief recap on my Olympia experience, what went wrong, how I'm currently feeling, and what the future holds. But before we get there, I have to take a quick second to congratulate our now two-time back-to-back champion in Ryan Terry. Guys, I've been a massive fan of Ryan since the origin of men's physique, since I've actually started to pay attention to this sport, and I will never forget just the high character individual he was then and who he is now as our champion. It hasn't changed, and now he has an opportunity to continue to impact this division and the sport as a whole for another year and likely potential future years to come. But again, Ryan Terry at the helm is exactly what this division needs, and I couldn't be more proud and happy for not only him, but again, the whole bodybuilding community. The 60th annual Olympia was truly something special. From the production, from the organization, the athlete care, the venue, and just the overall feel of the entire weekend, it truly felt like the Super Bowl of bodybuilding. And as a men's physique, as an athlete in general in bodybuilding, we do everything in our power to make it to that stage. And that stage did not disappoint. You know, the hype was everything and more. And even though we didn't necessarily get the placing we wanted, the experience in itself was something that I'll always take with me. So let's just jump right into it. Now, I had high expectations coming into the show. I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat it. I stepped on the Olympia stage 2 years ago. I placed 14th in the world in my very first show. Knowing that I wasn't even at my best then, with the hopes of now coming back for a redemption year, especially after missing it last year, I was excited, man. You know, this year had a lot of opportunity. You know, there's a lot of legends who weren't stepping on stage, and with that, it opened up the door for people like me, you know, young, hungry athletes inspiring to make a name for themselves. And the reality is we fell short. And I'm not gonna sit here and make excuses for the reasons we did. You know, at the end of the day, we just didn't get the job done. If you go back and take a look at my physique in 2022, there's a clear difference from my physique then to now. My entire career in bodybuilding, even though short, up until 2022, has been extremely progressive. Every single year, I've collected data and gotten better and better and better. But in 2022, or post-2022, that trend stopped. I started to notice my physique actually starting to degress. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know, what happened during that time? You know, what could potentially be the reason? Because I still feel like my training intensity is there. I still feel like I, follow suit in everything that I do, if not more, put more effort and energy into it, just knowing what my potential could be. And I just feel like with the more effort that was put forth, the less results were actually being shown on stage. My expectations and my standard is not just qualifying for the Olympia. I want to be in that top conversation. My ultimate goal is to be the best men's physique athlete in the world. And the last 2 years, I haven't been trending in that direction. When I stepped off stage in Miami, when I saw that physique would have done significantly better at this year's Olympia than my current physique. And that had me raising red flags. Now, the reality is, since then, there's been a lot of additions to what I do. As a professional, I've competed in a total of 12 shows. From the time I turned pro in 2020 to 2022, I've competed in 4 shows. And on the back half of my career so far, since then, I've competed in 8 shows. And the one thing that I've noticed since 2022 comparative to now is I really never gave myself a true off-season to grow. But I've been in a lot more dieting phases, aggressive dieting phases, pushing for a next level of conditioning that seemingly just wasn't shown. And the one thing I've noticed last year more than anything was that my body was just tired. We did 5 shows. We traveled across the entire country competing, and we realized that the more that we pushed, the worse that I looked. So that gave me my first reality check. I've been trying to sit here and think of potential reasons why my physique has not been progressing. And when I think back from the time I turned pro in 2020 to 2022, I've competed in 4 shows during that time. And then on the back half of my career, from 2022 to current day and age, I competed in 8 total shows. And the biggest difference between then and now is the reality was I was never giving myself a break. You know, I was in multiple dieting phases, traveling across the country just to compete. And I realized during all of that time, I never really not only took my foot off the gas, but actually invested in an improvement season to actually grow and put on quality tissue. When I stepped on the scale at the Olympia this year, I weighed 223 pounds. My weight cap is 239 pounds. I have a lot of room to grow, not only into my own physique, but also in the division in itself. And I've realized, and I say this all the time, especially to my clients, don't be in a rush to get your ass kicked. And now people will say, well, you're at the Olympia stage. Like, if you just nail your look, you nail your look. The reality is, nailing my look became significantly harder because of my physique being significantly more tired and unresponsive. I never gave myself a break to actually just breathe. And I'm not saying mentally, because mentally I've never been more motivated, but physically, actually taking time to put on tissue. Because what a lot of people don't realize, guys, my stage weight has literally just not changed and stayed within like a 5-pound radius from either 216 all the way up to like 223, 224. Like, my stage weight has not changed in 2-3 years. And I realize that's an issue. I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to put on muscle. And even though the scale isn't everything, it's a good way to gauge trends over a long period of time. And the reality is those trends weren't working in my favor. So fast forward to the actual show day, me being on stage. Typically, as an athlete, and especially if you compete, you know, it's very easy to read judges and kind of their eyes, their demeanor, and whether or not they actually like you on stage. And the one thing that I realized this time around was I wasn't getting that look, and I wasn't used to that. At every other show that I've done, I've always been in that top conversation, and the eyes were at me, and whether they were comparing me to somebody else, it didn't matter, but I always felt like I was being compared. This time around, I felt like I wasn't even being evaluated. And it has nothing to do with the judges or anything along those lines. It's more of what I brought to the stage. It wasn't warranted of a look. And that feeling sucked. And even though after I stepped off stage of the initial comparison, I was trying to be optimistic, I never expected what was to come next. So on the parallel, we're all waiting to be called out for first call outs, second call outs, third call outs, fourth call outs, fifth call outs, and then I heard my name called. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, not only is this the lowest placing I've ever had in my entire career, but I almost felt like I was being punished. And I know that sounds really weird, but after speaking and getting feedback from Tyler Manion, the judge at the Olympia, it made me realize that they had so much higher expectations for me. And now the fact that I wasn't delivering and simply making the improvements that they've been asking for the last handful of years, I wasn't going to be rewarded. And if anything, I was going to be reprimanded. And that's what it felt like. So when I got called out, finally, I tried to keep a positive face, a professional face, on to maximize my time that I had on stage. And by the time I stepped off stage, I knew exactly what I had to do next. And that's what leads me to now. I had plans of stepping on stage again after I competed at the Olympia to hopefully get an early 2025 qualification. But I never want to feel the way I felt when I was on that stage. I never want to feel that my physique wasn't warranted of a look. I'm so tired of hearing potential, because after you hear it so many times, it just basically means you're not maximizing what you have. And that's what I have felt like. I wasn't maximizing the potential of who I could be as a men's physique athlete. So after the show, I spoke to Tyler Manion, and he said, Alex, you have an immaculate structure, an immaculate shape. You need to come in harder, and you also need to make sure you give your body some time to actually make the improvements that we're looking for. And then it hit me. I was such in a rush to climb the mountaintop that I was skipping steps in order to get there. And the Olympia, I just fell back down dramatically. So I've been getting a lot of questions. What are you going to do next? I'm gonna make sure I never feel this way again. I'm not going to rush out of these current emotions. I think it's extremely important as athletes, as men, to sit and feel what you're feeling right now, to use as fuel through your entire off season, to use as a consistent reminder when you're tired, when your energy is low, when you want to make excuses. I always say, give yourself 48 hours. Give yourself those 48 hours. Feel every single emotion. And that's what I did. And it doesn't change the fact it still hurts, man. Like I felt like I let a lot of people down. You guys, my supporters, those of you who've been watching these videos, my family, they came all the way to Las Vegas to see me, hopefully take one step closer to that ultimate goal. And instead I took multiple steps backwards. But that multiple steps backward also, it made me realize something. No one's going to care how long it takes you to get to the mountaintop when you're already at the top. So take your time to climb. So that's what I'm gonna do. One foot after the other. I'm simply going to reevaluate the game plan, but regardless of whatever approach is being taken, I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to rush into this. I'm 27 years old. I have what it takes. I just need to maximize who I am, my potential. I was always fearful for taking a long off season simply because I felt like my identity was wrapped up in the bodybuilding, but it's not. Bodybuilding is what I do. It's not who I am. And the stage doesn't justify or dictate my relevancy. And I think a lot of people rethink that if they don't step on stage, then they won't be relevant. But I realized not only do I have an amazing podcast that helps enhance this division, not only do I sponsor shows, not only do I have a board short company that also reinvests back into what we're building, not only do I create content to try to bring value and education back to you guys, I am much more than a bodybuilder. So these lows don't feel as low anymore. And the highs, they don't feel as high, right? Ride the midline. The best advice that I ever got from Andre Ferguson was ride the midline. Don't let your highs get too high. Don't let your lows get too low. Don't let your wins elevate you mentally to a point where you feel unstoppable, and don't let your losses, break you. Because I've done that before. And even though this one hurts, man, I stepped off stage embarrassed. I stepped off stage, but I wasn't broken. And I know what I need to do in order to be the best men's physique athlete in the world. And that just can't be rushed. Bodybuilding is about consistency over an extended period of time. Who can be most consistent? And that's what's going to excel that person. And that's what I need to do. Now, am I going to compete next year? I don't know. If I do, it won't be until the end of the year. But the reality is, I'm not in a rush. I want to make sure that next time I step on stage, the judges say, holy shit, he made those improvements that he needed to make in order to, be rewarded. And that's when they're going to put me directly in that conversation. When they see the changes that needed to be made, then I will be in that conversation again. So to sum this all up, my Olympia experience was exactly what I needed. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was exactly what I needed. Because if I kept on the same trajectory as I was just trying to force, and I was getting rewarded for it, then who knows? I would never reach my potential. So instead, it's time to take some steps back in order to take multiple steps forward. It's time to prioritize my family. It's time to make sure that I put in the quality time in order to be the best bodybuilder I can. Time to focus on some clients. It's time to focus on growing businesses, and also just simply take off the pressure. There's no question, I am busy. I have a lot of things on my plate, but the best thing about what I have on my plate, it all feeds back into bodybuilding, the sport that I love so much. Bodybuilding is not who I am, but it's the root of what I'm able to do. Business, social life, friends, family, they're bodybuilders. We're a community. So hell yeah, I want to be the best bodybuilder in the world, but I also want to be the best husband in the world. I also want to be, the best brother, and I want to be a best friend, and be present. And I think taking that step back now is going to allow me to be the best version of myself in a lot of aspects, including a bodybuilder. Because next time I step on stage, guys, I'm not coming for second place. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys. I'll be back better than ever. I can promise you that.